So, welcome to Pizza Ministries. My name is Adam Cross.
Was it my turn?
I go first. My name is Brett.
Guess last.
Sorry. That's me. I'm Mayra.
What's your last name?
My last name? Yeah, Martinez.
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 What's your address?
P.O. Box.
So today we're talking about Catholic morality and kind of what can be perceived as rules in our faith and in our relationship with God. So I don't know. Should I start out with like
A question.
what comes to mind? I did that last time. What comes to mind when you hear the word morality?
Morality?
Morality, yes.
Really?
What do I think of first when I think of morality? I guess I think of doing the right thing.
Okay.
Good start.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so basic. Yeah, doing the right thing.
Okay.
Or else you're a scumbag.
Yeah.
And everyone will hate you.
Yeah.
And God will hate you.
Wow. That's harsh.
That's dark.
Theology.
Not Catholic.
That's not really like I was just kidding the last part.
I don't know either.
I think the same, and maybe trying to live a better life is a way maybe what comes up.
Okay.
Yeah. But sometimes it could be taken to it becomes so strict that this is the only way. And I think for me it's always trying to figure out a balance. So I think those two things come up, the strictness and then the more healthy way of living a morality.
Yeah.
And maybe explaining that a little, like, what's the word? I don't know the word, but go ahead.
No, that's good. Yeah. I think of, in 8th grade, we took a morality class. I went to a Catholic middle school, and I had our pastor come in and teach us a book he wrote on morality.
Nice.
So when I think of morality, I think of needing to take an essay test. But kind of, I'm taking a moral theology class right now, and so this topic has kind of come up, and I was writing like a blog for my class, and I was like looking for a good hook for it, and so I started looking up random laws that exist, and so a couple of them I saw were like confetti is illegal in parts of Alabama. You can go to jail for using confetti, or if you played bingo for more than 5 hours in parts of North Carolina.
Is another bee.
You're breaking the law?
Well, I don't want to live in North Carolina.
Yeah. Or Alabama.
I could do without confetti, but bingo?
None of us has ever lived in this godforsaken wasteland.
For 5 hours, yes.
Sorry.
But I think it kind of leads to the question of like, where do we get these random or seemingly random rules in our society, and then kind of bigger picture like life and faith and things like that. So it's a good question because it can seem random, especially like our legal system nowadays and society. Like all these things pop up. We're like, how do people come up with this stuff? Like where do we get these ideas from? You know, and they become law. So one of the things that I think is really common is that, especially with Catholic morality and just the Catholic faith in general, we think that, or we can easily think that our morality and our faith is a bunch of rules, right? That God has like said, hey, these are the rules I want you to follow. These are the 10 commandments. You need to follow them or you're going to hell, like Brett said, right? God's going to punish you. God's going to hate you. You don't follow the 10 commandments. And I think that's like this huge myth that even a ton of Catholics buy into.
Yeah.
That it's just all about the rules. Like, these are the rules you have to follow. And if you mess up, you sin.
Yeah.
And then you go to hell. And then you keep messing up, so God just keeps needing to give you mercy.
Right.
Which is part of it, but it's not the whole truth. Is that that really our faith is grounded in the fact that God has called us to freedom, and he's called us to love and truth. And that our Catholic morality is really those stepping stones, and the 10 Commandments are the stepping stones for us to be truly free, to be truly to truly know the truth and love that is God, and to be at peace in that.
Yeah, our God is not a karma God, and we were talking about the notion of, being punished by God specifically or being sent to hell. We use the phrase off screen when we were talking, or the term boomers. Usually that's like a boomer type mentality, right? When you do the wrong thing and, well, you deserve to go to hell, right? It's not as simple as that. But we also don't believe in a God who, for all the good things that you do, good things will happen. And with all the bad things that you do, bad things will happen. And when you get to heaven, there's a list of good and bad. And if one outweighs the other, then salvation or hell, right? We don't. There is freedom within the Ten Commandments to choose to live that type of life, right? In the Old Testament, it may not feel that way. But as we get through the New Testament and all that type of stuff, the freedom to choose a moral life, a freedom to choose a Christian life, is the only way to live that type of life. Because I don't think we're made to be robots to do that, or made to be an industrial line of like chickens or cows that are gone to slaughter or pasture or whatever, right? We're meant to be these beautiful beings that have free will. And the best way to exercise that free will is to choose to live a moral life, right?
Yeah. So, our Catholic morality is centered around Jesus Christ, in that Jesus reveals to us like what a good moral life looks like, and not just like I think when we hear the word good life or like be a good person, it's like, be the little Catholic schoolboy and fall in line. But it's like to live life to its fullest, right? Like that's what Jesus wants for us. And when we're looking at all of Catholic theology and salvation history, we see that Jesus fulfills and reveals who God is to us. In the sense, like, even going back to the Old Testament and the Ten Commandments, like God freed the Israelites from Egypt to worship and to be free, and they kept screwing it up. So he gives them the Ten Commandments, not to be like, here's your punishment. Sorry, now you can't kill people. And they're like, oh man, this sucks, but to be able to live.
No! What?
I hate him. But yeah, it's not a punishment, but it's a path and a solution for us to be able to follow those greatest commandments, to love God and put God above all else, and to be able to love others, right? Like, it sounds simple, like, oh, don't kill people. But we humans suck at these things. That's why we have the legal system. We need these things put in place. We need reminders of the love and the truth that we're called to. So Jesus reveals that to us, that even the Ten Commandments, it's not just like, I command you to do this because I want to suck the fun out of life. It's like, no, this is to protect you. This is to make you, or help you be free from sin, from tragedy, from trauma, like from adultery and lust and killing people, and even just concupiscence and putting things before God.
Right.
So in kind of the picture of salvation history, Christ reveals to us that this is God's plan of love for us. And as human beings, we struggle with that. But Jesus also is revealing to us kind of the inmost depths of the human heart as well.
Right.
It's like our desires for goodness, like for good things, like when we encounter the person of Jesus in the Gospels and through tradition, it's that we are seeing the fulfillment of our desires, like, and even living a good life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I also think when we follow a good moral code, when we follow the commandments, when we take to heart Jesus's instructions for us to live a good holy life and to pursue him, it's not just a fulfillment and an understanding of not needing worldly things, but most people that I know that take that type of lifestyle seriously, they tend to be very joyous people, right? To live that type of lifestyle may seem terrible. Like, it may seem boring. It may seem, very cut and dry, very blah, all that type of stuff. But most people that I know that lives under this Christian code, they tend to be the most joyous people. An example, not even in my life, and I talked about this with our peer leaders the other day. I mentioned the word boomer, apparently I'm a boomer because I really like CBS reality TV shows now. And I watched The Amazing Race with Brittany. And there was an episode where there was that one lady who got her arm bit off by a shark. I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
And she's Christian, right? And she was on this amazing race, and she made it to the final 3. And I'm like that jerk who could like look between the lines of like any TV show or movie and can figure out what happens at the end. I'm that. It's really annoying. It's a curse. Please God, let's just not just kidding.
He's too smart.
Yeah, I'm way too smart
and humble.
But they do interviews in between like the race activities that they do, and they do those interviews after the race is over, or that episode, that day is over. And they were interviewing, I forgot her name. I'm really sorry, I forgot her name. But they were interviewing her, and she was so happy with all the questions that they answered, that she answered. And I was watching it, I was like, that they won, right? It was the finale episode. It was like, they're too happy. They definitely won. They ended up losing, but they were so joyous and they were so happy about everything that they experienced. And the other people, you could tell they were bitter that they lost, and they were making excuses, and they were hurt that they lost. But this group, they were joyous still, right? Yeah. And to me, and I may be overlooking things, that may have been a sign of someone taking their Christian life very seriously, even through the sorrow of defeat, to have that joy, And I think living a moral life that you're presenting to us leads to that joy, where these things could happen to us, things may not go our way, but we could still have that joy in a relationship with Christ, and living that way to have a stronger, intimate relationship with Christ.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the crux of it, is that if we don't have a relationship with Christ, and if we don't look at God as someone who's like desperately trying to love us and to know us personally, then Catholic morality and even just any type of like moral code is just rules. Because it's like, God doesn't really care about me. He just is inflicting these things to make my life harder. Yeah. But when we have that relationship in place, like that is it. And I kind of think like when you get married, and I was actually talking about this with a young adult the other day, is that when you get married, your behavior changes, like with other people. It has to. Yeah. And when you're in a relationship with Christ, it means that your behavior is going to change in some way. Like I'm married and I have my wife to think about, and I can't just go out and do whatever I want because there's a relationship on the line. And with our faith, it's the same thing, is that our relationship with God is a marriage in a lot of ways, that we are the beloved, God is the lover, and we are in a relationship with him. So our actions now matter, and our actions affect God. And we have that relationship on the line. And that's kind of the crux of it. Because, like they can seem like rules. And growing up, that's kind of how it seemed. But when it's put in this context, like God is desperately chasing after you. And salvation history is revealing how much God loves you as a father. Then everything changes in how we look at like what a good life is and how we're supposed to live our life. It changes like Jesus from saying like, dude, this is what I want from you, to saying like, this is how much I love you, and this is how you can be free. And I think the other aspect of it is that true freedom isn't going to be like, I'm free from this, but it's going to be, I'm free in order to do this. I'm free to do something. It's not just like I'm free to get away from something. And that's an area I think in morality that we can often kind of get confused, is like what true freedom is. And it requires us to really define it. Right. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking there's so many thoughts. Because I'll go back to, there's a couple of things you said. One, when I do think of morality, there's such a negative connotation to it. Because I did grow up in and there's no offense to what I'm going to say, but I grew up in a very old school Hispanic culture. No offense. But it was very much like you were talking about, it's a personal relationship. Yeah. I grew up with, you have to go to church because that's what we've done our whole lives.
Yeah.
But, and I love my mother, and I'm also grateful for the gift of her faith, passing it on to me, but she never was the best practicing. It was very much a Sunday thing. And so I would sometimes say, even as a teen, like, why the I have to be here? Like, like if you don't follow, then why my cause? And so, and I was always told, and then, people do this. They'd say, if you don't, like as a kid, we use it as a punishment. If you do something wrong, God's not going to love you, or God's going to get pissed off. And so then I was like, so then I grew up with this image of a God that was always going to judge me and look at me. And so it wasn't till like later that I was like, I came to know him in a relationship. And then through that, I came to understand that they weren't rules. They were love letters or love notes. And I think that happens too. And even making it more practical of, we tell people generals, well, you got to do this and you don't do that, but well, give me some examples, like, some concrete examples. Cause right now, like my life is like I have anxiety. Where's God in all of this? And so if we explain to somebody who has anxiety, well, you were talking about freedom. Well, what are the things that are keeping me anxious? Is it because I'm worried about school? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? Well, God's saying, I understand. And I can't think of one example right now when I'm thinking. But no, but you were talking about the word thou shalt, like one of the is thou shalt not kill. And a lot of times we think it's automatic, like don't shoot somebody else. But sometimes our words are very poisonous to ourselves and to other people. Like sometimes I find myself going, damn it, Mayra, you're such an idiot. And that's a killing of my spirit of who God wants me to be. You talked about freedom. And that's a concrete example. Like God's saying, don't do that to yourself because I did not create you. You're calling me as you're calling yourself, you're calling me and we don't like. And there was always this cheesy thing saying I used to use in ministry. God don't make junk. Was junk. It was God don't make junk. But so as cheesy bleeps. As it is,
so many bleeps
in the truck.
No, but that's true. Like, I think I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
And it's slightly different, but even just recently, just reminding myself that I could be a bum. I could be like super lazy and God would love me exactly the same and my value wouldn't change.
Right.
That's hard for me to wrap my head around. And it's not like I want to do those things, but instead of like changing it from I need to prove myself. I need to earn God's love. I need to be good enough. Like I need to follow these commandments so that God will love me.
But just enough though.
Yeah. And so changing it from like I need to do this or else to saying like, oh, I already have that love. Like Christ already died on the cross for me, knowing all this stuff. And like that value doesn't change. Then it switches from like, I need to do this to like, oh, I kind of want to do this. Like I want to do what's good. I want to do what's right. I want to love, and that changes the your complete like viewpoint of the world looking at it from a place of relationship.
And I hope this doesn't take away from any of your final thoughts, but the idea of living a moral life, following the commandments, all that stuff. Well, first, let me say it is hard when you have that lens of who God is, at least in the beginning of your formation or throughout your formation. And if you have that lens when you read scripture, it does not help. Like even in the New Testament and the Gospel, sometimes
you'll find it.
You will, right? And you I mean, it is a translation, so it's kind of hard to get to the perfect translation of it, but it's hard to read when, and I know it's not meant to be this way, and we could talk about it in another video, but when Jesus calls his mom woman at the wedding, when he admonishes people, right? If you have that lens of a God who is just an enforcer of rules, it's hard to shed that even when you're immersed in Christian activities. The other thing I wanted to mention was the freedom of following a moral life and the 10 Commandments is important for us, for sure, and it fulfills us and it gives us freedom. But the opposite of that, the reason why it doesn't give us freedom is because it makes us focus on ourselves. And if you look at the 10 Commandments, it's honor your mother and your father, right? That doesn't just involve you, that involves another party, to murder someone, to kill. to steal, to covet, to do all that stuff. It's not just like these are the things that good people do, but these are things that bad people do to separate themselves from others.
Right.
And so the freedom of establishing a community, a freedom of trust with your community, with your friends, with your loved ones, with your God. The moral life allows us to grow closer as we choose to live that way, because the opposite separates us. And then we become isolated, selfish people who only care about ourselves. And that's definitely not what we want.
And then, I mean, this could be a whole other topic, but it's that, you know, God's law for us, like God's law of love for us, is drawing us to relationship. And ironically, or not ironically, but in fact, God is relationship. You know, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So God is calling us to imitate Himself in that love and in that.
Well, there's 3 of us. We're imitating it right now.
I'm God.
Guys, you curse and you're oh my
heresy.
God.
Okay, but I guess to close it,
Wait, can I say something real quick?
No,
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
I forgot what I was.
What have I done?
No, I think also to know that a relationship takes time, I think is good.
That's
because
good
I think
yes.
I had to grow into understanding, because I struggled for like almost 3 years trying to, like my whole life I grew up with this God, and all of a sudden I'm being presented with a different God. And it's like, what is the heck does that mean? Like, and so sometimes it shakes your faith and you're trying to figure it out, but you grow into it and always try to be gentle to like move yourself to it. And also something in Ignatian that we do in Ignatian spirituality, we ask, when you can't, then you ask God for help. God, really, I can't right now, but help me to know you. I don't know who you are. People say you're this. I think you're this. My mama said that. And my mama this. And, you know, my mama, I love her. But you ask God, help me to understand what it is to have a relationship with you. So you ask for the grace.
Yes.
And so that was the thing I wanted to say. Those are the final thoughts. We're done. Cut.
That's good, though. That's
good. Yeah. But I think the center of this is that. No, and I think that's spot on. It's like relationships take time to build, and they require you to get to know the other person, to ask for help. And it's almost like part of it is checking your images or faulty images of God is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But that at the center of Catholic morality, at the center of living a moral life and a good life, is the person of Jesus Christ, who is intimate, who longs to get to know you, to love you, and to be with you in your struggles as well as your joys. And Jesus fulfills the old covenant, the 10 commandments, and He brings us into new life. He changes how we view freedom itself and what it means to even be human, and why we desire what we desire. You know, there's the joke in kind of theology, or at least it's my joke, is that Jesus is the answer to everything, and it sounds really corny, but it's also true. Like, Jesus is the answer to those desires of our hearts when we're struggling with living a good life. So that's all I got.
If you want to contribute to this conversation, I don't know if it's obvious yet, but we're trying to build a community so we can build each other up. It may seem like it's focused just for those who work at a parish capacity, but we just want to build a community of Catholics that want to share their stories. So if you have a story about how you grew to know God, please leave it in the comments. Also, like our video. I heard that's important.
Don't like
and we're on social media things as well.
Yeah, you could.
I don't know.
Help. I'm an insecure guy. Adam is insecure.
I'm not.
Mayra's not. She's good.
Pretty.
But if you want to follow us on social media, feel free to do that. They do this thing in YouTube videos. I've been trying to learn what YouTube is. And they say, like, 1 like equals 1 something. What should our 1 something be?
1 prayer.
No.
$1 donation from Brett to me.
This is going the wrong way. 1 like equals 1 extra commandment for us to live by. No, that's terrible.
Thou shalt eat pizza.
Anyways, please leave comments. We're going to edit the heck out of this last part. But please leave some comments. Share your story with us. We want to know how you grew to know God, and we want to know what your struggles may have been. Other people need to hear that stuff. I think that's really important. Because you may think that you have the only weird vision of God that you changed from. There has to be somebody else. So please share that with others. And if you have a funny story about it too, feel free to do that. Yeah.
It helps build community.
Yes, it does.
And it doesn't make you feel so alone.
Yes. Yes. So thank you for watching this video. We'll see you hopefully next week. We're trying to figure out this schedule thing.
Thanks for reminding me.
Bye, Mom.
Oh yeah, thank you, Myra.
Yeah.
Thank you, Myra.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
for coming.
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Get out of here.